Hello there and welcome back to another video. It's going to be a shape of the top 6 video. One that I wasn't expecting to make, to be honest, but obviously since the breaking news last night of Manchester City being banned from Europe for the next 2 seasons after this season, it becomes a bit more, relevant to talk about the top 6, and actually it'll probably be more relevant to talk about the top 8 as well, depending on what actually happens. Now, there's quite a lot to consider with this ban as it gets laid out to them, and obviously Manchester City will be able to appeal, and I believe from some of the statements and stuff last night they did actually submit an appeal or are in the process of putting together an appeal and going to the sports arbitration court of sports arbitration, I think it is, to try and get the ruling overturned. So basically, just to sort of go through what I gather has happened, I've got a website up at the moment, Sky Sports one, just with a couple of quotes or anything like that. And obviously, people that watch this channel, obviously I'm a Liverpool fan. I'm not gloating or anything about the fact that Man City have got this laid out to them. Probably one of the few that isn't. I just want to sort of present what has been said and then give the implications of what can happen to the top 4 and also the top 6, what could happen with European places as well. So it's found that the Premier League champions are guilty of serious breaches of UEFA club licensing and financial fair play regulations. Now, this goes on between, anyone that has been following football for any length of time, when it says it is... they've overstated its sponsorship revenue in its accounts and in the break-even information submitted to UEFA between 2012 and 2016. So this isn't even the last few years. This has been since 2012, which I think was the season they won their first title, the 11-12 season, I think it was, with the obviously massive Aguero moment at the end, to take the title away from Manchester United at the time. Apparently, they are also guilty of failing to cooperate in the investigation by the CFCB, which must be the investigating body, and they will be banned from Europe in the 2021 season, and I can't even say it right, 2020-2021 season and the 21-22 season as well. Apparently, the women's football involvement won't actually be affected, which is good. There's also the Premier League. Now, the Premier League are investigating into City as well, and they won't comment on any potential sanctions, which is interesting considering what people are turning around and saying on social media. Now, the Independent are saying that Man City are facing Premier League points deductions as their punishment for serious breaches of UEFA FFP. Also represents a breach of domestic competitions regulations, so it can affect them in the Premier League. Now, it's not really going to matter now what happens in terms of points deductions for Manchester City this season. If they drop out the top 4, they can't, at the moment as it stands, they can't qualify and play for Europe, whether it's the Europa League or if it's the Champions League. They can't play in either if the ban is upheld. So if the ban is upheld as well, what are the implications on the rest of the league? Now, I'm just going to load up the Premier League table in just a second. But what it will mean, from what these statements have said, is if Manchester City stay in the top 4 of the Premier League, the 5th place in the Premier League will go on into the Champions League, which is massive, absolutely huge. So let's have a look at the Premier League table as it stands right now, and also obviously the top 6. We'll go through the top 6 as it stands right now at this second. Liverpool in 1st, Man City in 2nd, Leicester in 3rd, Chelsea in 4th, Sheffield in 5th, Tottenham in 6th. Now, Sheffield are on 39 points, Tottenham are on 37 points, Wolves are on 36, Everton are on 36, Man United are on 35, Arsenal on 31 in 10th, I should say, as well as Burnley, Newcastle and Southampton are all on 31 points, just separated by goal difference. But what it would mean then is you take a Sheffield United that are sat in 5th right now, they would go into the Champions League unreal, massive, massive, like that. You imagine like they wake up on like they're yesterday night, and they're all of a sudden now they've got the prospect of not just trying for the Europa League, but now they've got the prospect of possibly being able to go for the Champions League as well. And then you look at it from Man City's point of view as well. They will have to now go hammer and tong in the Champions League because they face the very real prospect of not being in it for the next 2 seasons. Now, obviously, Man City, they could have the ban overturned. They could even, I don't know if it's possible, but they could have the ban reduced, so maybe they only serve 1 year or something like that. But even missing out for a year serves massive implications to, not just, players staying at the club, but also bringing players in, selling that dream to them as well. And what happens with Pep Guardiola now as well, because he's lodged a lot of his ambitions for Man City is to win the Champions League. Now it looks like they are facing the very real prospect of this season being the only chance that they've got to win the Champions League within the next 2 seasons. And if then they don't win it, and you look at some of their stars, like say Aguero would be a great example. If they don't win it this year and the ban is upheld, he will be 34 or something like that before the Champions League can come back around. Will he still be at Man City? Will a few of them still be at Man City, depending on what happens? Because for some reason, it's not just the allure of the Premier League and money and such like that that brings top talent to the Premier League clubs. It's the Champions League. If you're in the Champions League, you will bring that talent. They will look at that first and foremost and be like, they're in the Champions League. They're doing well in the league as well, but they're mainly in the Champions League. They could be building a squad that's competitive, could win the Champions League. I want to join that club. It's not necessarily about all the money that you could offer. You could offer someone 500 grand a week or something like that. It's not about that. It's about the European competition. Even if you're in the Europa League and you're a team that was a giant and is maybe going through some tough times, take a Man United, take an Arsenal for example, they can still attract players. Arsenal bringing in a young talent like Pepe hasn't lit the Premier League on fire, but he's still a magnificent player. Like I think was it? I can't remember if they were in the Europa League or not when he came. But Man United bringing in Paul Pogba again hasn't always lit up the Premier League, but one hell of a talent. If you're not in Europe, that people say, oh, I can give you an advantage. Look at what Leicester did when they won the league. Anomaly. That is a massive anomaly. Doesn't happen. Has barely ever happened. I think them and Blackburn back in the day are the only two anomalies where it's been like, wow, could never have guessed that was coming. The fact that betting offices and stuff like that were 5,000 to 1 for Leicester to win the league, and went on the season they went to win the league, unreal. No one could have seen that coming. They are anomalies in the grand scale of what happens in the Premier League. So, with that being said, now the race for the top 5 could be very real. Again, this all hinges on whether Man City's 2-year ban is upheld. Obviously, every club would do it, but Man City's lawyers and their club in general and that, they're going to fight this one tooth and nail, because that is the one thing that they really want to cling to. That's the one thing that they really want to win. They would probably give up a Premier League trophy to win a Champions League. They probably would. And it looks like at the moment that this season could be the only time that they could get to do it in the next couple of seasons, if it's upheld, and they face Real Madrid in the next round, a very, very experienced, the team that's won the competition the most, 13 times champions of Europe. Like, it doesn't matter whether they're having a faltering season or, I mean, I think they're top of La Liga now as well. They're well above Man City. They're well above Barcelona, and for what has been a fairly, uneventful season for Real Madrid, where they haven't really set the world alight. They're still top of the league. They're in the Champions League. They're going to face Man City. It's going to be a very difficult tie for Man City. It's not just going to be one of those where they can go, we're going to the next round after this one. You're coming up against the absolute elite of European competition in Real Madrid. No matter what anyone thinks about them, that's the goddamn truth. It's not a given that Man City are just going to go there and over these next 2 legs and walk through into the next round of competition. If they go out against Real Madrid, what happens? What is the plan for Manchester City moving forward? But this is massive for those clubs like Sheffield, who find themselves fifth in the Premier League right now on 39 points. They're 2 points behind Chelsea, which is unreal, absolutely unreal. You know, and yes, they've got a game in. They've played one game more because they played. I can't remember who they played, but they played already before a lot of these other teams have as well. So you look at Sheffield, you look at Tottenham, Wolves, Everton, Man United, all these teams. They will now be looking, right, we could get top 6, but let's aim for top 5, because top 5 could get us Champions League qualification, which is massive for everybody now, and that could actually now reignite the top 6 race a lot more, give it a lot more fire, a lot more, you know, oomph, if I can't think of a better word than that, but I think it could actually, you know, and even Arsenal, while they're, what are they, 8 points away from 5th position, you've got to believe that Arsenal will now be looking at, right, we've got a chance of, you know, an outside chance of getting 5th place. 5th place could get us back in the Champions League, get you back in the promised land. And then it's all the money that comes with getting back in the Champions League as well. It's massive. It's huge. It's something like 170 million or something like that. If the ban's upheld for Man City, they will miss out on. Now, some people will say, oh, well, yeah, but they're not going to miss that because of all the money that the club and the owners give them. It's that exact thought process that has got them in the situation where they are right now, where they're looking like they're going to get banned from all European competitions. So maybe that will stop. Who knows? FFP is being criticised for a lot of things, a mass amount of things. But if it actually if it comes down to actually and factually punishing a team for breaking rules, like, and severely breaking the rules by the looks of the language that's being used, then fair play. You know, not to be a pun of financial fair play, but fair play. If it's just a case of wanting to make an example out of a club, it's kind of sad. It really is, because there's probably a couple of clubs at least, you know, maybe not just in the Premier League, but there's even like a PSG. PSG got off with it a few years ago. I can't remember if it was a few years ago. Might even have been recently, as like last year or something like that. They had something similar leveled at them, and they managed to get out of it somehow. They managed to get out of being banned or anything like that. You know, it's very difficult to take down a very wealthy and big club. You know, and if it happens and it's for the right reasons, then you know what, it should be for the betterment of the game. But if it's just a case of making an example out of a big club that's, you know, in the spotlight, and you know, I don't know if that's exactly the best thing for football, because then I don't know. As long as everything that, you know, as long as everything's factual, if you know what I mean, as long as everything's got evidence, then the appeal that Man City put forward shouldn't be processed, and it should just be a straight 2-year ban. There shouldn't be any leeway, and there shouldn't be any reducing that time either. You know, it's just, as I say, I didn't want to come and like make this video and be like, ha 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 ha, Man City, blah, all that sort of. That's not what I'm about. It's not what I do. I just try and present the facts as they appear to me. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've misread some things or something like that. But to me, it looks like the ban would be fair, and it gives the rest of the Premier League a bit more incentive to just, you know, go that little bit harder for like top 5, top 6, and even top 8 as well. Because what happens in the Carabao Cup or something like that, if Man City win it or something like that, I think if they win the Carabao Cup, it opens up 8th place as well for a possible Europa League qualifying spot, which is again huge. You look at 8th right now, that's Everton, you know, and obviously these you know, places in the table will change over time, but it opens up the rest of the league for an outside shot at Europe, which again, it could be huge. Anyway, I've waffled on for long enough. Let me know what your thoughts are about, you know, possible European spots being like 5th place, 8th place as well being open up as well. Or let me know if there's anything that I've actually got wrong as well, that I haven't actually, you know, thought about properly or haven't spoken about properly. Let me know it in the comments below. I do appreciate any comments that you do leave. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do like it and subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you once again, and I'll catch you later.